Welcome to the Brew Bucks Podcast. The podcast for the beer-drinking enthusiasts trying to get better with money. Your hosts, Jake and Alec, interview personal finance creators, speakers, authors, real estate experts, and everything in between. There's nothing quite like having a conversation with your friend while sipping on a cold one. If you're looking to learn more about money without all the fluff and BS, you've found your new home. This is the Brew Bucks Podcast. Now your hosts, Jacob Wilhite and Alec Miller.
Welcome back to episode number 48 of Brew Bucks. Alec, it's been a couple weeks. We got really ahead on the podcast and we're killing it. And we took some time to relax and hang out. But we're back. So what's happening? What's new?
Feels good to be back. I feel a little bit rusty, but that's okay. I'm going to make it through. But I am delighted to be in this chair today because it means I'm not at home planning a wedding.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that have come up that you didn't expect, or expenses that you're like, what the hell? Why is this so expensive? Or what have been some hiccups in the wedding planning road?
Catering is expensive, man. I mean, I guess, buying food for 150 people is going to be expensive no matter what, but that seems to be the big thing. What I'm learning, though, is to just not stress. Just do it little by little, and it's all going to fall into place as the time comes.
Yeah, do little chunks at a time.
Wow.
I think some of the things that blew me away were like the price of like flowers. I was like, what the hell? Even photographers, like great photographers, are up there like $4,000, and you're just like, oh my God. Especially up here where it's like wedding venue central, it's like companies that have anything to do with the wedding industry know that they're in a really great market and that lots of money pours into this area. And so it's tough to get a wedding done up here on a budget for sure.
Yep. As soon as you slap wedding in front of it, it becomes twice as much.
Yeah.
And especially in this area in Sonoma County, I've looked into what the average medium is for a wedding. $35,000.
Yeah.
I'm under that, but I don't know. I might end up getting there, unfortunately.
Well, it's going to be an awesome day.
Yep. Oh, no, I'm excited. Basically throwing a party for my friends. You'll be there. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, that's exactly. I hope I get invited. That would be weird.
Definitely you already got to save the date, so you're good.
Well, I think for this week's episode, I think we got to cover the crazy crap at SVB. Like I think that's like the biggest news in the biggest headline in all the news right now, and people are freaking out and thinking it's the end of the world and the economy's crashing and all these different types of things. Yet the stock market's up this week. It's so weird. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't predict the stock market. They're right. It is just monkeys throwing at a dartboard. That's what it is. And if you don't know what SVB is, that is Silicon Valley Bank, for anybody that doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, up here in our neck of the woods.
Yep. Yeah, not too far, only about an hour and a half away from us. So why was this such a big deal? Just one of the 16th largest banks in the world closing down pretty much within 24 hours almost?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy actually. So it's a big deal because people see a bank close or a bank fail and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my money.
Recession.
Yeah. Recession's happening. Banks are, we haven't had anything like this happen since 2008. Right. So here's what happened with SVB and why. Actually, first, let's start out with the FDIC and what they do, right? The FDIC is in charge of ensuring your money at every single, major bank that is FDIC insured. Your cash up to $250,000 is safe. So if I have at Bank of America $250,000 in there and Bank of America goes, bankrupt, closes down, whatever, the FDIC says, hey, we will give you that $250,000 and make sure that you have it after the bank closes, right? So SVB was FDIC insured. So many people who had under $250,000 in there were feeling good. We're feeling safe. But they actually said that they were going to insure even the larger deposits in the bank, which is cool as well, above the $250,000 limit, and basically make everyone who had their money there whole. So
that's nice.
Yeah, agreed. But so what happened? SVB attracted a lot of startups, a lot of just like venture capital funding, very, again, like tech savvy people, right? and got them to park their money there. SVB decided that they were going to invest that money in, like 10-year treasury bonds. Well, what happens with bonds when interest rates go up, bonds go down, right? And so basically they had all this money in bonds and that were going down in value. And so a lot of the financially savvy customers that SVB has said, hey, this is not good. We should take our money out from this bank. And so basically they did a bank run, and I think it was like, I don't know, $46 million or something crazy in one day that was withdrawn from the bank, and they could not cover it all, right? So the FDIC said, hey, we're coming in. You're deemed insolvent. We're taking over. We're shutting you down. And so, again, a lot of companies don't just pour, or a lot of banks don't just pour all their money into bonds. A lot of them are doing loans and other types of things, right? And so not as big of an issue, but it's causing some panic in other areas, and it's affecting some other banks because people are thinking that it's going to happen to those banks too. But ultimately, again, it's not really this crazy widespread thing that we have much to worry about, in my opinion. So
don't be worried, you're saying?
Yeah, don't be worried. It's all good. And that's why the stock market is up, in my opinion, is because the system worked exactly how it's supposed to. And so I think there was definitely a lot of turbulence, but showing, hey, like we put all these these systems in place to where if things like this happen, we're going to be all right. And it worked. So that's why, again, this week of turmoil has led to the stock market actually being up. So
yeah, I like that.
Pretty cool. But why don't we move on to our guest of the day?
We got a legendary guest today.
Yes, my man Josh from the Market Hustle. He has been ever since I have been on social media. He's been one of my favorite accounts to follow. Just creates all kinds of great content, funny finance memes, all kinds of good stuff. And I don't know, the content is always just very clear, easy to understand, and just feels like, I don't know, personable. Doesn't feel like you can, like, his posts have character to them, And so yeah, I love it. And like I said, one of my favorite creators, and we finally get to bring him on and talk a little bit about personal finance and entrepreneurship all tied up together. So without further ado, let's bring in Josh. Josh, the man behind the Market Hustle. Welcome to Brewbucks. I am super excited to hang out, man.
Hey, I'm excited for this. First off, thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to, drink our beer and dive into some of the questions you've got.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like it's like we're down the yellow brick road and we've just figured out who Oz is and we're opening up the curtain right now. So I love it.
That seems pretty accurate.
I dig it. So Josh, as you might know, we're going to start off each show by talking about what type of brew we're sipping on. Whether it's a nice cup of coffee or an ice cold beer, there's something different about having a conversation with a drink in your hand. Our goal is to provide some interviews and conversations with great guests while not taking ourselves too seriously, and most importantly, having some freaking fun. So, Alec, let's start us off, buddy. What you got?
Well, before I start talking about the beer, do you know why a skateboard is a good investment?
Why?
Because you can flip it.
Oh my God.
There it
Terrible.
is.
Always got my one dad joke.
The dad joke of the day. All right.
All right. So now on to the beer. So today I really like this brewery, and I kind of only recently discovered them, even though they've been around for about 2 years and they're in our area. The name is Cuvée, Cuver. And I had to look up what Cuvée meant, but it is like a European term for like a different style of pigeon. So there's a certain pigeon that's called Cuvée. So that's why their logo is a little bird. But what's unique about the Cuvée brewery, they're located in Windsor, California, is that they specialize in Belgian beers. So they don't really do IPAs and all that stuff. They do saisons, they do golden ales, and I think you don't see that much anymore from breweries. Everybody's on that IPA hype, and they don't kind of try to do the old school stuff. So I'm really shout out to Cuvée for keeping it old. So let's give it a taste.
Yeah, you really don't see that very often. If someone doesn't have an IPA or hazy IPA, people are like, what?
Oh yeah, and the beer is called Triple. It is a Golden Abbey Ale. It is sitting at 8.2% ABV, and it's pretty good. It's got a strong caramel flavor to it, almost with like a little bit like zesty notes too, like almost like an orange citrus or something like that. But it's really good. It's very drinkable beer, especially at 8.2%. It's not boozy. It's not as sweet as a lot of boozier beers will be, and it's very drinkable. I definitely give it a buy.
This is Alex's second triple IPA this morning.
Can't wait to start the day.
It is noon. Good job, buddy.
Can't help it. It's just like triple IPA season. It's hard to find other things. Everyone's doing triple IPAs right now.
In the
so-
winter,
Yeah.
those heavy hitters for sure. Well, Alec, tell me a little bit about this beer that you brought me today from Humboldt Cider Co.
Yeah, I brought you a cider because I recently went up to Humboldt. Well, they're not located in Humboldt, but in Eureka they're located, and they've just been killing it in the cider game. I'm not huge with ciders, but for whatever reason, they do really cool mixes. This is a hibiscus one, I believe I gave you.
Yep.
And this one's unique because there's only one place you can get this on draft, and I forget where, but it's the guy who was like an early investor in Humboldt Cider. So his tap room exclusively has this on tap. But I went to Humboldt Cider and they had cans of it, luckily. But if you look at the can, it's this little guy with a hat, and he looks like he's basically, I guess it's called a hole. I guess it's disc golf, and he's like the hole that you would try to throw into the cage, and he's on top of that. So I think he's a big disc golf guy too. But it's kind of a cool, unique can, so I like it. If you haven't tried Humboldt Cider, I highly recommend them. They're great.
If you're a cider person, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't drink a ton of ciders, but I'm excited to try this one. So it's called Humbrew's Hibiscus Hemp by Humboldt Cider, 7%. Apple cider blended with hibiscus and hemp. So
Good stuff.
yeah, I guess that would explain the pot-looking leaves all over the can too. So
It's Humboldt.
Checks out.
yeah. Oh man, that doesn't have that like same like tart like pungentness at the end where I think I get like from a lot of ciders where it almost gives me like instant heartburn. So this is good. This is pretty smooth. I dig it. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi,
Josh?
Josh, you got a nice looking glass over there. What are you drinking?
I do. I have a nice ice cold glass of Space Dust IPA. So one of the
classic.
Exactly, a classic. I'm actually I'm still newer in the beer scene, so this to me is kind of an upgrade from what I usually drink, which is going to be something like Modelo. So I'm working my way up the ladder, so to speak. But yeah, it's been I actually tried it for the first time when I was flying out of LAX. I tried it at the airport. I'm like, oh yeah, let's give it a shot. I had a couple hours to kill, so I decided to expand my beer horizon in the airport. I think it was like 10 a.m. It's the only acceptable place to drink at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
But I tried it there, and ever since then, I want to say it was a couple months ago. Ever since then, I've actually been pretty hooked to it, and I've been, it's slowly started to become my number one go-to beer.
I like it.
They're located in Seattle too, so you gotta check out their tap room if you haven't yet.
That's good to know, actually. I'll have to do that.
Another common place to drink at 10 a.m. is on the Brewbucks podcast. And there's something to be said about like those Modelos. Like I feel like eventually everyone comes back to like those light beers that they love too. My wife Stevie, she works also at a brewery, and she still loves to just have a classic Modelo here and there. So I dig it.
Something sentimental about that, the easy beers that you're
Totally.
Crown and lime.
Well, cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks again for coming on, man. Super excited to jump into this. So, let's start off by getting to know you a little bit better. So, I guess like what was growing up for you like? Where'd you grow up? All that good stuff, and then maybe kind of give us a little bit of insight about like money growing up and how you grew up around it.
Of course. So my childhood was a little kind of scattered. My dad actually worked at Intel, and he got a job there. I want to say I was born in 1995, and he got a job in like the early 90s. So like that was right as Intel was really starting to like become a good company. Like, it was blowing up during that early tech boom. So because of that, my dad had to move around a lot. Like we moved from a bunch of different states. I want to say I probably, before the age of 15, I moved to like 8 different states. So I was constantly in and out of schools, which it was kind of a interesting childhood, I guess, experience. But I moved all over the country. I mean, we lived in California, we lived in Oregon, we lived in Colorado, we lived in Arizona, a few different states. We were all over the place. But I was born in Beaverton, Oregon. And then most of my life, I spent mostly in Arizona. So I ended up living, we ended up kind of settling in Arizona. And that was right after the 2008 situation, which, obviously a lot of people got hit hard during the 2008, my family included. And we happened to be in Arizona during that time. My dad ended up, Intel kind of had their situation where they had layoffs. So he ended up getting affected. And kind of leading to the answer to the next question with the money situation. My parents just kind of had a nasty divorce during that time as well. Not to get too deep into it, but it was kind of a mess during that period for like our family. with my dad losing the job and with the divorce. We lost our house, our childhood house. Like as a kid, I want to say, I'm terrible with like remembering the exact age. I want to say I was probably like 12, 13, 14, somewhere around there. But as a kid, it was tough because we went from like having a pretty decent lifestyle to just going back. Like my mom had to get on food stamps. My dad, like we were kind of scavenging for money, right? So I realized this as a kid, like it kind of started to click into my head at such a young age of like how much money impacts your life, right? When you go from that life, from a pretty decent childhood lifestyle, going down to where your parents have to get on like food stamps and, you know, start to go onto like trying to get help from the government and whatnot. Like it's a hard transition. And it was very eye-opening to me as a kid. And I would say that was probably like just those events throughout my childhood, like how rocky it was. I would say it was something that probably put me on the path to be more intentional about money as I grew up, just because I've noticed how much it impacts life in general, right? I mean, my family, like we always prioritize like spending time with family and everything, and that's important. But even without money, it's hard to do, right? Like obviously there's more to life than money. Like that's a true statement, but it's hard to enjoy the good parts of life without having, you know, money and being intentional with your money as well. So that's a little backstory. You know, it's been quite the journey, but I would say that's probably the best way to describe kind of my childhood without going into like the crazy details.
Yeah, I think everyone was impacted a little bit differently from the whole 2008 situation, you know, but it sounds like you are literally like a classic example of what happened in that time, you know, and I think it definitely sent a lot of people down that path where they were like, man, I saw like what can happen. Like I'm gonna make sure as I get older, like this is not gonna happen to me, you know. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's cool.
I think that was the only positive outcome that came out of the 2008 crash was all of us 90 babies kind of seeing what our parents were going through. Because you said you're 95, I'm 93, Jake's 94. I think it might be you're 94. And we did get to see how that really impacted our parents when I don't think as children we were really focusing on finances, but then it kind of got thrown in our face that we were forced to focus on it because our parents were so being brought down by it. The whole economy was. So it's as sad as it was. I think us 90s babies, a lot of us have learned from that, and that's the only good outcome that's come from that, especially you. I mean, you went through some good times and bad times when you were a child, but look at you now, you're killing it now. So
Hey, you know, like that's a big thing. Like I'm a big believer that like a lot of learning comes from like adversities in your life. You know, it's like my past, like although, you know, like everybody has their troubles or you know, nobody comes from like a perfect life, or very few people do. So like, you know, even though you might be going through a tough time right now, like if you're listening to this podcast and you're going through a tough time right now, like the key thing is like there's always ways to like learn from whatever experiences you're going through at the moment and implement those lessons of what you learned to like not basically to benefit from the lessons that you learn to not end up in a worse situation down the future. Like there's always a learning experience no matter what you're going through in life. And I think that was one thing I learned at such a young age. And kind of like you talked about, a lot of us 90s kids did as well. We learned some crucial adult lessons or just life lessons in general, especially about money, which has only benefited me, and I'm sure several other kids who kind of came from a different experience during that time frame as well.
Yeah, you got to be able to find some of the benefits and hardships.
Oh, absolutely.
You
learn more from your mistakes. So kind of after your childhood, what was next for you? Did you go into higher education, or where were you from there?
Yeah, so we stayed in Arizona. Like that was kind of I lived in Arizona. I actually moved like a couple of years ago, so I stayed there for 15 or so years. But basically, the route I went to next is I did go to college. I went to ASU. Shout out to the Sun Devils, Tempe campus.
Yeah, it's a fun area.
It's a really fun area. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good experience. But I double majored at ASU. I went to school for business management, and I also got a major in global politics. So that was a fun experience. While I was there, I want to say junior year of college, I was also getting my real estate license in Arizona, and that was back in 2017-ish. 2017. I was getting my real estate license, and I ended up actually becoming an agent at that time as well. So my senior year of college, I was kind of learning the ropes of how to, you know, be a good agent and help people buy and sell homes. And that was challenging on its own while also going to college.
Yeah, sounds like you didn't even have time to party.
You're doing a lot of it.
Really, I did. You know, that's the thing. I credit a lot of it to my childhood. Like I was just focused on trying to get myself into a position to where I wasn't struggling for money. Like I hated the idea of money having leverage over my life. Like, and that's kind of like always been ingrained into me. And I credit it a lot to my childhood, like, you know, just never wanting to end up in that situation to where if a hardship does occur, I want to be able to bounce back from it as the best I can. So I mean, I was very focused. I mean, I'm still focused to this day, but I would say back in 2017, I was even more so. Like, I was just ready to like get myself to a position where money had little leverage over to me, and I was willing to do whatever it took. So like, I was just trying to learn as much as I could, learn from as many people I could learn from, and just try to find the best route to, I mean, make the most money, but also get myself to a position where money doesn't have as much leverage over my life.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
I think it was one of your posts where you said, you're either going to pay for the choices you made later in life, or you're going to have the choices you made earlier in life pay you for it. And I think I might have butchered how you said it, but I thought that was such a great post that you did, because it's so true. I mean, you don't want to chase your tail later in life. And the fact you're helping out people on social media, telling them that, I love it.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the whole, like, we could dive into that as well in a little bit, but that's kind of what motivated me to start on social media, was more so of trying to help somebody who was in my position. Like, I was more so making it to try to help people, like try to help my past self. Like, if my past self was on social media and he found my page, I wanted to help that person kind of learn what he needs to learn in order to get his money moving in the right direction. So that was kind of also my inspiration to like start my own social media page as well.
That's super cool. What did you end up landing on as like a career afterwards?
So I continued going. Yeah, so I continued going down the real estate routes. And after I graduated college, that put me right around, I want to say, 2 years in the real estate. And like, I had some good success being an agent, but I more so wanted to get out of like the sales side of the world, you know, and I wanted to get more into like I like the business side of things. Like, I like building businesses. Like, it's fun to me. It's kind of like, you know, putting together puzzle pieces and whatnot. So I actually started applying, like, after I graduated, to a bunch of like the real estate tech companies. Like, I applied to Zillow, applied to Open Door, Redfin, and I ended up getting a job at Open Door working on their new buyer team. And like, my job was to help them kind of build out that team and structure that part of the organization, because Open Door was a startup back then. I mean, it still is kind of startup-y to this day. It's going through a lot of turbulence right now. But so that's what I ended up doing for a few years after graduation, was working at Open Door. But even getting that job, like, I actually kind of backtracking a little bit, because like when I was going through those interview phases, like I wasn't really getting much traction. And I actually had an interview at Open Door. Like, I had 2 interviews. So the first interview didn't go anywhere. They ended up filling the position and bringing somebody else in. And then the second interview, which is the job I got working on the buyer team, I ended up getting that one, and that one opened up. I want to say I ended up getting that one like a couple months down the road after that first interview. So I just kept being consistent. I'm like, I want to work at one of these tech companies, because I understood, like, obviously, like, I like the technology side of things. And I also like real estate, or just the investing world in general. So like, I felt like that was a good in between of like hitting on the innovative companies such as Open Door, and also working in somewhere I had a little bit of experience in, which was real estate. So like, I was pretty set after college to get into one of those companies. And eventually I got my foot in the door at Open Door.
Yeah. I didn't know you had such a background in real estate. That's cool. Because obviously, you know, most of your pages doesn't have much to do with real estate, or at least not super often. So that's cool. Getting to know that side. That's awesome. Open Door and Open Door Capital, those are 2 different companies, right? Open Door Capital is like Brandon Turner's, like, I think that's his what is it?
Yeah.
His syndication company. Oh, and then
okay. Yeah, so those are separate. So it's Open Door, ticker symbol OPEN.
Okay.
Like,
Got
it's
it.
a public company now. It actually
okay.
a couple years, 2021, it went public.
Gotcha. Cool. Just wanted to clarify. So yeah, I figured, you know, for this interview, we kind of do a little bit of a bridge interview, because like you've mentioned, you do have kind of like some business background, a lot of like entrepreneurship things going on. And then obviously in that space, you talk a ton about personal finance. So I figured we could kind of breeze through and merge both of them. So why don't we start off by talking about the Market Hustle? I know you kind of explained your why for starting the page a little bit already, but did you ever think it would turn into what it is today?
Not at all. No. So it started as a hobby. Like, I was more so just posting things just for fun, you know. And again, like, I guess I'm kind of a personal finance nerd. Like, I enjoy like trying to learn different strategies and stuff. So I was just more so sharing that stuff on Instagram, just as a hobby. It wasn't really anything serious. And I was doing that while I was working at Open Door. So like I never intended it for it to like take off the way it has now. But right after COVID, like it just seemed like social media blew up overnight. Like it just, the amount of attention went from a small, teeny, tiny amount of attention on the platforms to just massive amounts of attention, just flooding all social media platforms during COVID. I mean, because everybody's locked in their houses, they have nothing to do. So everybody's just online on social media. So the Market Hustle, my brand specifically, benefited tremendously from like that attention, because not only were people just trying to find some like entertainment or stuff on social media because there's nothing to do outside of the real world, but people were also interested in just learning about the stock market during that period as well, because the stock market was going rapid or going crazy, during the 2021 period. So there was a lot of just newer investors who were eager to learn. So, a lot of it comes down to luck. Like, my page just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Like people just ended up having a need or a want to learn about the stuff that I was talking about. So my hobby just naturally transitioned into like something a lot more serious and more concrete. So, and I would credit it a lot to like, I just happened, my page was started at the right time. Like if I would have waited a couple of years, it probably wouldn't have had the momentum that it has now. But that was like a big pivotal point, like during the COVID situation, because it went from a hobby to like, I'm like, okay, I need to start getting more strategic with this, because this can actually turn into something. Like this could turn into like an online business or whatever. And, I've always like been interested in like trying to build something online in the online world. I mean, I've tried in the past, but like everything I've tried kind of failed. And I would say, I think because I was just like not intending it to be a business, like life works out that way where you kind of get what you don't actively go get it. If you're not set on trying to make money, you end up making money. If you're not set on trying to like build a business, like somehow a business automatically gets built. Like, I don't even know if that makes sense, but that seems to be like the case in the situation where when I wasn't really intending for it to turn into something, I was just doing it for the fun, like out of the love of making the content. It turned into something that I could never imagine, especially to like at the point of where it's at today, with over 800,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm on a bunch of different platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. Like where it's at today, like I would have never imagined. And to me, like at the point of where I'm at now, I just want to see how far I could take it. Like if everything goes under and people just stop liking my brand, then it is what it is. But to me, it's more of a game at this point where I'm just like, how far can I take this brand? Is this something that can grow into something bigger? But I mean, to answer, like, no, I never had the vision of it growing this big. Like to me, it was always just going to be like a hobby where maybe I helped a couple of people that were in a similar position to me like years ago, and that would have been just good enough for me.
I think a big reason too of why your page got so big, like, yeah, you can kind of give it to COVID a little bit, but what I think makes your page stand out compared to other people's is you have comedy in it. Like you do some memes, you do some jokes and all that stuff. And I think like I'm all about trying to put comedy in anything. I mean, I crack all these stupid jokes on the podcast because I think sometimes when you use comedy, you can teach a lot more. And there's a lot of these social, like these content creators where it's just black and white. There's no comedy in it. And I think like when you bring in that element of comedy, it really makes your ideas stick to the people that are seeing it. So I commend you for that. And I think comedy isn't always easy to write. So I kind of want to know, like, what's your process for creating content, and like, how do you constantly keep fresh ideas coming along?
So that's the challenge. Like that's the hard part of being a creator. But I will say, like, I completely agree with you on the philosophy of like comedy. Like that's the whole reason I try to implement it. Like, not only is it fun to like try to make some jokes, like that it's a fun, like kind of art side of the world as well. But at the same time, like I feel like people grasp the concepts, like the personal finance concepts, a lot easier when you're using comedy versus just putting out stuff like black and white. Because the one thing I realized like a couple of years ago was that all the information's out there on the internet, right? Like anybody, if they have the desire to learn how to open a Roth IRA or how to invest in the stock market, like all the information is on Google and YouTube. It's very easy to find. But that's not the issue a lot of people are having. A lot of people are having an issue of just, a lot of it comes down to like a behavioral like situation, or just like a psychological situation where people just, maybe they don't understand the value of money, or they just have like a belief system where, maybe their beliefs on money, they just believe like money is evil or something like that. So like the reason why I wanted to like start using comedy is because I feel like it's easier to like break through those barriers that people have. compared to just sitting here like talking. Like if you kind of try to make it more fun and entertaining, like I think people are more willing to like listen and understand what you're trying to preach compared to just like putting out the black and white content. So like that's been a strategy that I've implemented for that specific reason, was just trying to help people digest crucial, like fundamental personal finance and investing concepts. Now, when it comes to like how I create it and stuff, so a lot of it comes down to, it's like trial and error, right? It's like I constantly like try different tactics out, and like I would say like 80% of the stuff I put out there like doesn't perform how I want it to perform, but like I just try different things out. And then things that work, like if I find a strategy that works, like a certain format or like a video format or like a meme format that works, like I kind of note that mentally, and then I go back and recreate it like with different types of concepts, right? So it's more so of like a trial and error approach with like different types of content itself. But at the same time, it's also having your pulse like on the meme world, right? So like I'm also trying to like, I would say my page tries to integrate like just general memes into the personal finance world. So like I'm also like constantly paying attention to like the current viral memes, and then looking to like translate those into my specific world, right? So like it's also paying attention to that side of things, and then obviously adding your own twist. But a lot of it is, I would say, like research, like just researching, the different communities in the social media world. Like I like to talk about it like it's like different neighborhoods, right? So like there's the personal finance neighborhood, there's the investing neighborhood, there's the crypto neighborhood, and there's just like a regular general meme neighborhood. So like I'm constantly going to different neighborhoods and seeing what's being talked about to kind of curate my own version of that to my own neighborhood on the Market Hustle.
That's so cool. I love that analogy, the different neighborhoods. That's awesome. I think again, just touching on the comedy piece too, like I feel like you're one of the only like faceless pages that you can still really understand your personality and like who you are. Like sometimes you get a lot of those pages out there that don't have maybe like a lot of that person on the page, but you can, and it just kind of feels like, oh, this is just like random posts. Like you can tell like, oh, the Market Hustle has a personality still, and I think like a lot of that is what's bringing that to it. I also think that like kind of talking about earlier where it was just kind of a passion project. I think so often we kind of talk about the cliche thing that if you follow your passions, a lot of times they become monetizable by accident along the way. And it's super cool that it happened for you. Yeah, super cool. So what are some of the ways that you've been able to monetize that content and create additional income for yourself? Because I understand like this is your full-time job now, right?
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Correct. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. So that was the tricky part for me, because I didn't want to become like the cliche sales page, like trying to throw out a course and everything, because like I also, when I first started the page, like I saw all the like pages that are just like throwing out like basically scams and stuff like that. And I didn't want to like end up in that specific route or go that specific way. But obviously, I mean, when you're a social media page, like I put a lot of time into this page. Like I probably spend, I would say, if I had to put a number of hours, like I would say easily 50, maybe sometimes some weeks even 60 hours of my time, like strategizing and creating content with the Market Hustle. So like obviously, I mean, I'm not at the point in my life where I could just work for charity for free at this point. So like I still need to make income or have some sort of income in order to first off live my life, and at the same time reinvest money into my business so I can potentially grow and grow the brand, the Market Hustle brand, and have more of an impact in the future. So it was hard for me to like figure out how to monetize. And I started out, the first thing I started doing was like running promotions. So one thing that happens when you start to get some momentum with your page is you'll start to have people, brands, or just different businesses reach out to you asking like, hey, can we pay for a promotion on your page where you post either one of our content, recommend your followers follow us, or you recommend like our service or products, and they pay you to do that. So I tried that route at first, and I was able to make some money from it. I want to say when I first started doing that, I probably made like $1,000 for the first month. And so like it was good because like I was still working at Open Door on top of that. So like it's like, oh, cool. Like this is like extra money. And I just threw that in the stock market. So I'm like, might as well just invest this all. Like this is great. I mean, it was good, but like to me, I was like, this isn't like really sustainable to like actually build a business out of, you know, like it is, but at the same time, like I was noticing that a lot of the promotions I would get, like sometimes they wouldn't be directly correlated to like the values of my page, you know, so like there would be like
Adam
the
and
big,
Eve.
exactly. Like a lot of the big money, like if you wanted to make like good money from the promotions, you'd have to start promoting like the crypto traders and just like the trading stuff. And it was just stuff I didn't never wanted to preach because it goes against the values of my page, right? So I had to kind of like switch things up back in, I want to say that was like 2021, right? Where I started to realize that is that I needed to like find a way to monetize that it brought in revenue so I could start to invest more of my time into this and grow it even more. And I could start to have more resources to potentially bring in virtual assistants to help me out with some of the content creation and stuff like that. So I decided to create a guide, like an investing 101 guide. And that's what I started with, because a lot of, that was like a huge question that I kept getting in my DMs. I was like, hey, how do I start investing? How do I start investing? And what I realized is like, there's so much information out there. Like you can Google how to start investing. And the hard part for a lot of people is sifting through all that information, because there's so many different ways to invest and just different strategies. And so like there's a lot of noise out there. So I wanted to create a specific way for people who've been following my brand for years, like the Market Hustle way, like that fits my values. I wanted to create a specific way. So I created that guide, the Investing 101 guide, that kind of shows the strategy of investing in the stock market based on my page values. And in return, I charged that. And obviously the people who were going to be buying that were people who were following me for years, who were like my loyal core followers and wanted to support me in some way anyways. So I decided to go that route, where I started to sell that investing guide. And it actually worked out a lot better because I was no longer running just random promotions. And like, because like when people are following you, they're expecting some sort of promotion, because everybody pretty much realizes that, you know, you still have to make money. Like nobody truly expects you just to do everything for free. And a lot of people realize that it is a business at the end of the day. So like they kind of expect some sort of promotion. So like I just ran into like, I would rather promote my own products and my own stuff rather than somebody else's products that don't necessarily fit my own page's values. So that's the route I started to go. And since then, like that started in 2021, the Investing 101 book like took off during that time period, because obviously COVID-19, like a lot of people were interested in learning about the stock market back then. And yeah, it completely changed the course of the Market Hustle and just kind of my vision for the brand itself, because I hit my first, like I want to say it was a $20,000 month, and that was January of 2022. That was the first month I hit at $20,000, and you know, it was crazy. Like I was like, what the hell? Like this is insane. Like I've never seen that much money in my life. And like obviously at that point, I'm like, this has a real potential to turn into something huge, right? Like I mean, I was making a fraction of that at Open Door. So I'm like, my time could be better allocated towards making this a real thing and growing this into something bigger, rather than just focusing my time on this, you know, Open Door, which was fun. But I'm like, I started to see the vision of what I could potentially build out of this. So since then, I mean, I've continued to grow the Market Hustle brand, and I've also continued to grow the education, the way I monetize it, the education side of things, where now I have like a dividend guide. I have a budget template. I have fundamentals of the stock market, like just research different companies, and all the content in there. Like obviously, some of the criticism I get is like, oh, you can find it all on Google, whatever. I'm like, you could, but you're going to be spending like hours and hours like sifting through all the information, where this is compiled for you based on the Market Hustle value. So if you've been following my page for a year or two, odds are you agree with the values. So like, you know, it's instead of spending 6, 7, 8 hours researching it yourself, you can spend 30 minutes reading the content. So it just depends on how much your time is valuable. Like if you're willing to pay the price, like I don't charge anything crazy. The ebook was, or the book was $20. So it's like, if you want to pay $20 to save 6 hours or 5 hours of research, like that makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense to you, like, you know, I always tell people, like I put a lot of this stuff on my page, like stick around for the free content. Like I'm not trying to like be one of those, you know, cliche Instagram course pages. Like I hate the sales part of it, but I still like realize that it's a business. And if I want it to turn into anything meaningful in the future, like I have to have some sort of revenue.
Yeah, totally. I've always appreciated that about your page, is you like, if you go on the Market Hustle, it's not, oh, course here, ebook there, spam here. It's in the background. You know, the values, the teaching side, is always very prominent first. And then obviously there's that piece of, the monetization piece kind of lurking in the background as I always kind of think about it. So, yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, shout out on basically this becoming your full-time job and that $20,000 a month. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, there's a lot of content creators that would love to get that, and you're out here hustling and doing it. So
It's been crazy. I mean, and I'll say this, like, obviously, the bear market and everything has impacted like my business because there's less people that are interested in like learning now. So like getting comfortable, because like it's never like, I know that 20,000 is like a big milestone, and like that's not like a consistent thing, like there's obviously months where it sways, it's ups and downs. And that's the one thing I've really learned with like entrepreneurship is that you have to get comfortable with the volatility of like your revenue, especially like right now, because like it's a bear market, it's a recession, technically. And even the personal finance or investing creator space is in like its own little mini recession, so there's like, it's kind of battling through that, like being more intentional. Like I have to be strategic with like how I obviously having an emergency fund for my own business and also my personal life, but also realizing that if you're going to jump into like building your own brand or business online, even if you go full time into it, it's not as like easy as it might seem on the outside, because like it's volatile. Like the income itself is super volatile. I guess that's the one thing I kind of miss, like from the employee side of things, is like you get that consistent paycheck, like no matter what's going on, you're always getting paid. But like the hard transition for me was going from the employee to like entrepreneur, where like I've become a lot better with it now, but it's just it's easier said than done, and you won't truly like understand it until you go through that experience.
I like how you said that content creators are kind of going through a recession, because I do think, I mean, you started pre-COVID, but I do think a lot of them kind of started right at the beginning of COVID, and they saw these huge numbers, lots of followers, lots of interaction. And then since we're kind of in the post-COVID world, is that all of those have kind of fallen down. Sure, you still might have the followers, but they're not interacting with you as much as they were, or maybe you have lost followers or you're not gaining them as quickly. And I think that has deterred a lot of these content creators from doing it. They've kind of slowed down. I mean, how have you kind of been able to move with the times? Because I know you even mentioned TikTok. Like, how's the evolution going from Instagram to TikTok been for you? I mean, has that been a struggle? You feel like you're adapting well with it?
So for the longest time, because going back to a little bit what we were talking about, like the Market Hustle brand has not really had my personality or like my face in front of it, right? It's been more so just the Market Hustle brand. And that was kind of intentional, because I mean, when I first started as a hobby, I didn't really want my personal self involved in it, because I was working a job and everything. And at the same time, like I would say, when you build a personal brand, for the most part, you're only going to really, how do I describe it? Appeal to people who are kind of like similar to you, right? It's like your demographic, right? So like for me, if on TikTok, I actually have, it's just my personal brand. Like I don't actually have the Market Hustle itself. Like I'm always on there. And so it's going to be people who are from 25 to 35 males, which is my demographic, right? But with the Market Hustle, I hit on a lot of other demographics. So I can spread my message a lot further without having my personal self on there. So like I can appeal more to like the younger crowd or even the older crowd, and also like females, because it's not just myself, my personal self on there. And it's just a branding strategy, I guess, if you will, because like think about like a lot of like the most loved brands in the world are faceless brands, right? It's like Coca-Cola or even Apple. Like a lot of different people like that, but I would say when it comes to just like a personal brand, it's harder to like penetrate like different demographics, because people can only really relate to you. Like when you're building your personal brand, they have to relate to you to trust you, or not necessarily trust you, but just to be able to understand like what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So I would say it kind of accidentally led to a good strategy where the Market Hustle doesn't have a face onto it, because it's been able to like reach different areas that I probably couldn't reach myself if I just had myself out there. But I am starting to test it on TikTok, where my TikTok itself has actually been doing really well. I mean, I would say TikTok right now reminds me of building on Instagram in 2017 when I first kind of really got started. So I would say there's a lot of potential on that platform, but I'm still kind of learning the whole personal brand side of things. Like that's kind of where I don't have too much experience. I'm starting to put myself out there in the social media world, and I'm also trying to do it on Instagram, where I'm starting to share some of my reels onto Instagram that include myself, and it's been fun. Like it's cool. I think it does help. Like it definitely does help connect and build more trust with like your audience. But at the same time, I just feel like the amount of people you could potentially reach is limited compared to like building a faceless brand, so to speak. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah,
100%. I love that you're kind of explaining a lot of the things that go behind the scene into doing this stuff too, because I think some people, the picture is like, oh man, this person just like throws some shit up on Instagram and then, gets to kick it for, the rest of the week. And it's like, no, like this is a 50, 60 hour week job that I'm still doing. It just
It's a
happens to be
grind.
something I'm more like passionate about, so I like that we're kind of
Yeah.
being able to like paint that picture for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does the future Market Hustle look like? Any future plans?
So that's a good question. And that's probably something I also ask myself like constantly is like, which direction do I want to go in? And I would say ultimately, like I want to continue to build the Market Hustle, like the brand itself, into a more like credible financial education brand, right? Like that's kind of like the ultimate goal, because as it stands right now, like it's more of like it's not something that's like on the level of like credibility as something like, I don't know, what's a good example? Just like not to like conflate the Market Hustle, but like the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is like an established prestige organization. It's just trying to like build up the Market Hustle's brand to have more of that credibility, so to speak.
Yeah,
So like I would think that's my ultimate goal, is just to continue expanding on the different platforms. Like I started a blog last year, so it's continuing to expand on that end, and just trying to like build out different types of content that different types of people can absorb better. Because like some people the way they absorb content is going to be through like writing, through blog posts, or maybe it's through podcasts like this, or maybe it's through video, or maybe it's just through tweets and stuff like that. So like everybody in the world like is going to be, they have a different preference on like how they want to absorb material or education. So my goal with the Market Hustle is to first off hit on all those different areas to where I have content for different types of ways people prefer to use content or learn about content and whatnot. So that's step number one. And the second step is like eventually I would like to get the Market Hustle out of only relying in the social media world. Like I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the just the financial education space in general, because like it's the school system, like there's very little financial education in the school system. So I'd love to have like a bigger impact in trying to like partner up with like schools down the road and like trying to help them build out like a simple curriculum, personal finance curriculum. So like going somewhere that route is always an option as well. But ultimately, I would say I'm kind of just taking it one day at a time. Like I have like a grander vision, but ultimately none of that's going to come to fruition if I don't like master the basics that are right in front of me. So for the next couple of years, eventually I want to start a podcast, but that's probably down the road. But just continuing to learn and find the Market Hustle's voice, the brand voice, like kind of tune that to the right way to where I feel like I can scale it a lot further. So it's just, continue to expand my brand, my blog, my TikTok, work on my personal branding. This is all a skill, it's all trial and error. So once I get this kind of fine-tuned, I would say the next step would be trying to just continue to build up the credibility of the brand itself, and then eventually hopefully have a bigger impact with helping partner up with schools down the road to help them build the curriculum that kind of teaches all the stuff that I've been teaching on Instagram for all these years.
I really like that, because I feel like we have a majority of people that come on our podcast talk about how they don't teach taxes, they don't teach financial, like just anything in school really. They just teach the Pythagorean theorem or whatever the hell that is. And it's cool though that you are envisioning yourself possibly like trying to figure out a way to get that in schools, maybe like working with somebody traveling around and giving speeches and stuff. I really like that, because I don't think anybody's ever said they want to do that. They just complain about how it's not happening, but you're actually trying to set in place an idea to maybe make it happen in the future.
Yeah, get rid of PE and add Market Hustle 101.
Let's do it. Kids. Maybe keep PE.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you're right. Americans do still need PE.
And I know it's like an ambitious goal, but it's I feel like setting those ambitious goals like helps me at least have some sort of guidance to like, what am I working towards, like what am I doing this on a day-to-day basis. And like even if it doesn't necessarily get to that point, I would say it's kind of like the whole shoot for the moon. Eventually it'll end up in the stars or whatever. Like, if I head for that direction, I would say it's a good direction for the business of the Market Hustle at the very least. But I mean, ultimately, to me, it's just like I went through the school system, you know, we all did, but I didn't learn much of anything about money. And to me, that really bugged me as a kid, because like I was going through like high school and we were learning about, like you were saying, like rocks or just Pythagorean theorem or whatever. And to me, I was just like, you know, right now my parents are struggling with money. Like we don't, like, things are going crazy. Like, how can I make money? And, you know, they never answer that question, you know? So to me, like, I always try to think back. Like, I think the best way I can add value is like, how can I, at this point in my life, at 27 years old, add value to like the younger self, my younger version of myself, like 15, 16, like what would I tell that person of me, like that version of me? So like, that's kind of how I try to think of it. And that's how I try to build my content, is like building content for my past self. And I would say that strategy itself has seemed to resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people are in the past versions of myself, or they're at the state of their life where I was, like maybe when I was 20 or 21 or 22. So I think it resonates a lot deeper with those people that are in those situations when I try to like teach my past self. And then it's easier on myself to make content, because I would say that the hardest part for like content creators, like what the hell do I make, you know, and what content do I make? And it's easy to run out of ideas. And for me, it's like, it's never easy to like continue to learn. Like I'm always like trying to like figure out new ways of doing things, and then turning around and teaching the past version of myself. Like that's where my mindset is when I'm making content and whatnot.
All right. So let's say you go to these schools, you teach them, you finally get a face of market hustle. What is going to be the first piece of advice you're going to give these kids to pertain to their finances for the future?
That's a good question. And I would say it's going to be a cliche answer. And the reason why is because it's cliche for a reason. And it's because it's true and it's important. And I would say investing like, you know, 10-20% of your income, like that's like, if you just do that alone, like just 20% of your income, invest 20% of your income, you're going to be so much further ahead compared to the average person, right? So like I would say that would be like my single line message is invest 20% of your income, comma, not only in stocks. Like I'm not saying only invest in stocks or assets. That includes investing in yourself. Like the biggest time I've been able to grow is when I bought books, or I bought mentorships or whatever. Like just investing in yourself is also part of that same equation, where you're using a portion of your income to constantly be investing in your life to obviously make more money, but also to improve your current income, because the income you generate is the most important part of the equation. Like investing is also important. Like I'm a big advocate of it. It's better to invest anything rather than nothing. But at the same time, when you're younger, you're going to want to pay more attention to investing in learning new skills that are going to be able to increase your income. So whether that means paying for mentorship from people who are at a higher level than you, that you can extract lessons from them, or maybe that means purchasing books or whatever it be, you're going to have a lot bigger ROI from the money you put into like that area compared to just only in the investing in the stock market. Now, I'm not saying don't invest in the stock market. I'm a big advocate. Obviously, that's my whole page is built on investing in the stock market. But I think you could do both. And that's where that 20% comes out of. Like if you can solidify that into your head at a young age, where 20% of my income for the rest of my life is going to be dedicated at investing in my life, whether that be in my own skills, whether that be in the stock market, whether that be in buying real estate, whether that be starting my own business, like investing my own money to start my own business or my own side hustle, which is what I did. You know, like there's a lot of different ways you can go about investing that 20%. And it's not only the stock market, but obviously investing a little bit of that 20%, even if you are 20 years old, into the stock market is going to have that compound effect over the long term, like I talk about all the time. But at the same time, investing in your own skills is just as important, because your income is going to be what drives everything. And the more you can grow your income into the future, the more you're going to be able to invest in passive assets such as stocks and real estate that are going to be able to make your life easier down the road.
I love that. I think a lot of people, again, think, oh, I need to invest 20% of my income. And it's like, it just comes down to a dollar amount of, hey, I'm investing this much into the stock market. But it's so true. Like the ROI on investing maybe 20% into your self-education instead, or again, starting a side hustle or starting some new venture, like could quite possibly be way more beneficial than, again, just continue to dump only money into traditional investments. So I think that's a great thing to point out. I dig it. Do you, before we completely transition to personal finance, do you ever feel like it's hard to unplug? Like how, this is kind of a question that I have, you know, that I've been thinking about a lot for creators. How do you put the phone down, you know?
So I've gotten better with it, I would say. in recent year, like probably just this year alone, I've gotten a lot better with it. But it's difficult, right? I mean, because especially when you're running your own business, like you're always the last line of defense, no matter what. So like when you're working at a company, like it's easier just to, once you're home, you're done, right? You turn it all off. But when I'm the last line of defense, where like if there's a problem in my business, like I'm the only one that can, like if I'm the only one that can solve it, then if I don't solve it, then my business suffers, right? So like that's always going to eat at you if you're building your own side hustle or business itself, like in entrepreneurship. But I've learned over the time, it's like I've had my series of burnouts over the past. Like I'm a workaholic naturally, so like that's kind of, I have that DNA, I guess. But I've gotten better with like unplugging, because I've noticed that, if I don't take the time to like recharge and like mentally refresh myself, I'm going to be less efficient over the long term. Because if you burn out, that's going to be weeks of like not being able to do anything, just because your brain can't even think anymore, right? So it's being strategic, because if I take, 8 hours a day, 8-10 hours a day where I'm just doing nothing, and, trying to like focus doing important work within 4 to 5 hour periods. And then the rest of the day is more so for like mentally unwinding and just thinking, like just regular thinking. It's going to be a lot more efficient for my life. I'm going to enjoy my life a lot more, compared to just always being on the go. When I made that transition from open door to going full-time in the market hustle, I was probably working like 80-90 hours weeks, because, it was just, it's hard. Cause like, I'm like, everything's on me. If I don't make this income, if I don't have income coming in, like I'm making no money. So it was kind of like having, it was kind of like how do I describe it? Having like I hate to use like something like visual, but like having a gun to like, to you, being like, if you don't make money, you're done. So like, that's kind of how it felt. I'm like, I have to make money. Like there's no option. Like I can't fail. Like I can't really have downtime. But I've learned to like build systems in my business and like be better with like my time management and in recent times. And I feel like it's only helped me tremendously compared to being in that period when I first jumped into entrepreneurship. Like now I just feel a lot more mentally clear. And now that I take time throughout my days to like just not do anything, like completely don't touch my phone, just go on some hikes, go out in nature, go into the real world and explore. Because when you're building a business on social media, it's very easy just to be ingrained into the internet world all the time. And I'm intentional with like getting away from the screens as much as I can, like going out and enjoying nature, talking with people in real life, even having these conversations with other people is helpful, because if not, it's easy just to kind of so like keep yourself cut off from the real world and burn yourself out over the long term.
For sure.
Did you take some notes, Jake?
I'm trying, man.
Dude, it's challenging, man. Like it's not something like I still struggle with it. Like I think it's a constant practice. It's like working out, right? You have to find the right routine for yourself. Like there's not like a one answer to this, because like everybody's wired differently. So like just finding whatever routine works for you. And like I'm constantly tweaking it myself for my own self. So like it's not something that happens overnight. Like I've been working on this for a couple of years now.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate the tips.
Yeah. I think that's why this podcast is so fun, because I think Jake is the one that can never really settle down. Like, you can't just sit and watch TV. And I'm the guy that can definitely watch TV for way too long and put on my phone. So we get like this good mix on this podcast. And I don't know, it's fun.
That's good.
We're definitely from different worlds.
Alec makes fun of me because I'm like constantly working into like the second we like hop on the podcast, like on the phone or doing something or whatever.
Do some prepping before, and he's just like, I'm doing this.
That's a good balance to have, though, because then you guys kind of help each other check and balances, essentially,
Yeah.
So I like it.
Yeah,
100%.
helps check and balances. Cool. So I guess lately on the podcast, we've been talking a little bit lately about how everybody seems to think the sky is falling with the stock market. I mean, I have a coworker who's like, I want to bury my money. I don't believe in the stock market, all this stuff. Ridiculous idea. But I mean, what is your opinion on the outlook of the stock market, and where do you think it's going from here?
So, I mean, I'll start with this. Like the stock market itself, like if you study history, like just study the stock market history, like it's constantly going through periods of fear and optimism, right? Like it's constantly, that's just how it is. It's the roller coaster of fear and optimism, or greed, if you will. So right now we happen to be in one of those seasons where it's fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people questioning the economy. But my reminder to everybody is that this is not the first time that we've experienced something like this. This is a normal part of the stock market. Like as the stock market overexpands during the bull markets or the crazy greed or optimistic times. Like there has to be a period where it kind of calms everything down a little bit. Like, hey, let's get back to reality. You know, we need stocks don't only go up forever. We need to kind of have a little bit of a balance. So to me, we're in one of those seasons where we're going back to reality. You know, the fundamentals matter of companies. Like that's going to be true forever. You know, the fundamentals always matter at the end of the day. But there's going to be certain periods where people forget that, and you know, people go crazy with gambling in the stock market, which we just got done doing. And now we're in one of those seasons where reality's setting in, right? And it's a cycle. So like if you study, like my advice for like newer investors is like go study the past crashes, you know, study the past crashes, and you'll notice the trend. You know, this is not anything new. We've gone through several types of these periods. We've gone through worse periods, you know, like people forget there's the Great Depression or World War II, you know, these periods where, you know, I would argue are much worse than they are right now. And we made it past those periods as a society, or even as the stock market. So it's not anything new. Like this is just part of the reality of the stock market. The stock market's cyclical. It's going to have its ups and downs. And I would say to people, like, try your best to like swap your mindset, to look at this as opportunity. Because if you're younger, if you're in your 20s, 30s, or even your 40s, like you still have a good amount of time to invest in the stock market. And even if the stock market for the next 5 years is down, which would be shitty, and everybody would probably hate the stock market forever, but if it is down for the next 5 years, that's 5 years that you can continue to accumulate shares at a lower price. And inevitably, as long as the overall economy continues to grow, eventually the stock market is going to bounce back. I mean, there's never been a period during, at least in the American history with the S&P 500, where it hasn't bounced back. Now, I'll say this because a lot of people will be like, well, what about, you know, Japan, or what if that, you know, that doesn't mean it's going to expand forever. And that's true. Like there might be a period where it doesn't. But my advice to that is like, if the S&P 500 or the stock market collapses and goes to zero, we're going to have much bigger problems to deal with than investing in the stock market. And money itself will become worthless. Like the dollar will just become completely worthless. So, you know, if you want to play that doom and gloom narrative, like that's fine. You can think about that. But again, like if you play that out, the end becomes you might as well just invest, because why not? You know, if it's all going to become worthless, might as well just invest. So you can play that doom and gloom narrative out, but most people don't think that far into that narrative. And that's fine. But that's why I built this page, to try to help people think through this stuff. Because I would say, you know, especially if you're younger, I mean, obviously if you're close to retirement, then it's a different little bit of a different story to you specifically. But if you're younger, you have 20, even 30 years to invest, like you should not be fearing this crash. Like you should welcome stock market crashes and discounts, because that's where the real wealth is built, is in bear markets. I mean, look back to the 2008 situation. Like if you bought good stocks or good funds like that actually produced value into the world, and you held on to them to like this period, you're still up, you're still in profit right now, even during this current bear market. So like the real wealth is built in bear markets, right? I mean, even the greatest investor himself, Warren Buffett, he always says, be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. So think about that quote. Like take some time and think about that quote if you've never heard of it, because like it's super important for like times right now.
We were literally just talking about that exact concept before the show, which is so funny. Like if the stock market went to zero, you wouldn't be trading time for money anyways. You'd be trading time for bullets, you know, like
Exactly.
that's what would be going on.
I actually really like how you said too, that it doesn't matter if you invest, because even if we do get to that point, dollar's worthless. So it doesn't matter if you still have those dollars left over, you're not gonna be able to spend them. So I love that outlook on it. I've never thought about it like that.
Exactly. And I'll even add this, you know, we've gone through these situations as a society where everything feels like it's about to blow up and end. You know, we feel like we're at the end of days, you know, like again, the Great Depression or World War I, World War II, like we've gone through so many of these situations where it just seems like everything's going to shit, right? But humanity and just our society in general has eventually found a way around it. You know, and I'm always optimistic on like human nature over the long term. Like I think we're always going to have these inevitable short-term periods where we're like, what the hell is going on? And maybe that happens to be right now. But we've always in the past made it past these situations when reality and push comes to shove, right? So like it's reasonable to expect that we're going to be able to figure it out this current period. It might be a couple of years where it's like kind of painful and a lot of uncertainty is surrounding the entire markets. But look back at human history. We've gotten through so many even worse situations than we're currently in the past. We've gotten through them where it seemed like everything was going to shit and nothing mattered. Where now we're kind of experiencing one of those moments right now. But if you look back in history, like it's reasonable to expect we're gonna be able to get out of this and come out the other side even better down the road.
Yeah. Absolutely. I dig it. Well, I guess man, we're cruising through this. So any last last minute personal finance tips or I guess things you want to throw out to the audience before we jump into our lightning round?
Let's see. Let me think about this. I would say ultimately, I would say for people who are like trying to just extract some personal finance tips out of this podcast, my big advice for you is like, the money itself is simply a tool, right? And like where you spend your money is going to show what you value most in life. So if you have $100 or $1,000 and that's all you have to your name, if you simply just go, I mean, not to shit on beer, but if you just go spend that all on beer, then that shows that you really value beer in your life, right? Whereas if you start to invest a portion of that into like learning, maybe you go buy some books or you buy whatever, you reinvest in your education, you're voting with your money what you value most in your life. So like this could be an eye-opening exercise to some people who are listening. Like go through your spending habits, like just go check and see where your money is going. And it might be hard to look at for some people. Like for me, I've done this in the past, and this is kind of what helped me start to like have things click, is like I don't value spending more of my money on fast food or just food in general compared to investing in the stock market. Like I would rather invest in the stock market because that's what's going to buy me freedom in the future to do whatever the hell I want in the future. So that's where I want to allocate more of my money compared to just like food or whatever. So like go through your money and just when you're going through your past spending, like think about it, how what you're spending on is showing what you value out of life the most. And if that happens to be that you value beer the most out of life, then so be it. Like I'm not here to like judge anybody. Like, we all have different values out of life. For me, I just want to not have money have leverage over my life. Like I want to have the freedom to do whatever the hell I want and not have money be a limitation in my life, which means in order to get to that place, I have to value buying assets over spending money on stuff that doesn't make me money, right? And that doesn't mean people get this confused because they're going to be like, oh, so just live a boring life, don't have fun. No, you could do both. Like there's a balance. There's a magical balance that you kind of have to find, and it's going to be different for everybody's life. So I'm not saying don't go have fun, don't drink beer. Drink beer. Beer's great, but at the same time, make sure you got to find the balance in your own life and make sure that balance works to what you value most out of life.
100%. I think you could like even use time as an example, like if you told someone, hey, you only have 12 more hours to live, like what would you do? It's a lot different than, hey, why are you spending 3 hours watching TV every day? Or hey, is that what you value the most? Like is it the sitting down, watch TV? And again, like you said, there needs to be balance. Like, yes, there's times where we need to unwind, we want to relax and all that good stuff. But it's like, hey, the majority of the effort in your time or the majority of the effort of your money, like, is it going towards what you truly value? And I think that's a great point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think somebody said that a lot of millionaires that you can't really buy more time, but what you can do is like, oh, if you're rich, like you can hire a gardener, so you're not outside gardening. You can hire maybe somebody to cook for you, so you're not spending time cooking, so you can get more hours in the day and stuff. And yeah, it's just
or just replacing your income in general to where you're again not having to work for money at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So I dig it, man. Cool.
And beer's always in the budget, by the way.
Of course. Don't get me wrong. Beer's always in the budget.
Maybe just, a higher allocation for some than others. Cool. All right, guys, let's jump into this lightning round. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
What is your favorite beer or beverage?
I'm going to have to go with the Space Dust. That's the one right now.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Do you have a favorite brewery out in Seattle? I know they have kind of a bigger beer scene going, or maybe any local ones that you've been to.
I'm still learning about the different beer scenes. Like I need to get out because like there is a big beer scene here. I've only been here for about a year, so like I haven't gone out and explored yet. So I'll have to take your recommendations after this podcast and go explore some of the ones if you guys know of any good ones. I know you said that the Space Dust has a brewery here, right?
Yeah. That's where they started in Seattle. What's the name of the big fish market in Seattle? The
Pike's
Place Market.
Pike's Brewery is pretty good if you want to check them out. I'll throw that one out there. So Pike's
that's good
Brewery.
to know. Yeah. I'll have to check that one out.
They started in the 80s, but they're old school, but they still make great beer.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Pike's is cool.
That's good to know. That makes sense why it smells like beer over there. Because I've walked over to the market a couple of times. It's just the scent just hits your nose right away. I'm like, all right.
Smells like fish and hops.
An interesting combination. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book. So I'll have to go with probably Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. That's probably on the top of my list if I had to put one out there.
And why is that one?
I would say it's more of the philosophy of like life, because Marcus Aurelius, he was the Roman what was it, Roman emperor, so this was written thousands of years ago, and it's just interesting to get into like the side of like the way he was thinking about life, or just like his philosophy at life, and kind of breaking down, how would I say, maybe false beliefs, because like one thing that I've been like really focusing on over the past year is just breaking down things that are kind of prohibiting myself from moving on to the next level, whether that be like limiting beliefs or just having a different view of reality than actual reality itself. So like I feel like this book it's more of like a psychological book. Like it gets pretty deep, but to me it's one of those books that might resonate to a lot of people just because of the way he kind of articulates just his specific philosophy in life. Like I found it super. It's a lot of it's resonated deeply with me. The way he's described kind of how he's viewed life, and I've been able to make more sense out of, I guess, reality in general.
Yeah, that's cool. I dig it.
Cool. What's your favorite place you have visited or place you want to visit next?
I want to visit. I've never been to New York, and I feel like that's a place you have to go. Living, I've been here forever, so I feel like that's a place I need to like check out, because I've heard a lot of good things about New York, and there's so much stuff out there. So like I really want to try to visit New York probably sometime this summer, ideally. But yeah, I've never been, so that's a place that's been on my checklist.
Nice.
Cool.
Big Apple.
Last one here for you. What does retirement look like / mean to you?
Simply, it's just the freedom to do whatever I want to do, whether that be working on different projects I want to work at. Like I think a lot of people have this mental image of like retirement meaning you just sit around and do nothing. And like to me, that's not the case. It's more so of just working on the things you want to work on. So like if you want to go and start a small little brewery yourself, like you can go and do that, because you have the option, not having to sell your time directly for money. You can go and work on like small little projects like that, whether it is like creating your own beer or whatever. Just having that freedom to like live where you want to live, do what you want to do, and wake up when you want to wake up. To me, that's the best thing. First off, money can purchase. Like nothing else comes even close to it. And that's the point that I strive to get to, where I don't have to do anything, and everything that I work on towards my life is because it's something I deeply want to do.
100%. Mic
awesome.
drop. Boom.
All right. So one more time for all the listeners at home, where can people find you?
I think we've said it about 400 times already today, but
So yeah, the Market Hustle. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I also have a blog, themarkethustle.com. I have so much different types of information out there. Instagram is probably the best way to reach me, especially if you want to like I'm always on the DMs, so like I try to answer as many as I can. So if you have any questions about my life or if you're a up and coming creator and want to discuss some strategies, like I'm always open to talking with people. It's fun for me, because not only am I able to teach other people, but like I feel like I learn the most from teaching as well, because it kind of solidifies what I know, and I can articulate it better once I teach people. So I feel like it's like a win-win situation. So the Market Hustle on Instagram, if you want to message me. Other than that, I'm on almost every social media platform. So feel free to follow me on there and stay up to date on personal finance, investing, and money related content.
Yep.
Heck
and
yeah.
comedy.
And comedy. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet, Josh. Well, hey man, I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. So super fun hanging out, and yeah, man, glad we could connect. So thank you again.
This was a fantastic interview.
Thank you for putting this together. It's been great to have a beer with you guys and talk over all this stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, buddy, take care. So you fired up?
I'm very fired up after that interview. That was an awesome interview. We definitely took a long trip down the yellow brick road. We looked at who was behind the kern, and I know Dorothy was disappointed when she saw who's behind Oz, but I can tell you, Josh behind Market Hustle is fucking fantastic.
He's the man, dude. Like I've said a couple times already, he's definitely one of my favorite accounts to follow, and just like, again, the personality, the genuineness, the the value that comes out of the page, like, and just overall, like, content speaks for itself, and all the stuff that he's putting out there is awesome. And getting just to know him a little bit more, like, and his personality, it just kind of like reassured all of the thoughts I already had, and just a super cool laid back guy. And he's getting to do something that he enjoys and that he loves full time, and couldn't be more happy for him.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts of the interview as well was that we get so many content creators on here, but they don't really go into in depth about the time it takes to do it, like how they get their ideas and all of that stuff. They just kind of like, yeah, I do it. And I thought like he went really in depth with where he gets his ideas from, why he does it, and how he does it. And I really appreciate that. I think people are going to learn a lot from that side of it today.
Very methodical.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely get over there. Obviously, if you're not already following the Market Hustle, I don't know, you've been living under a rock or something, because
Rookie move.
Yeah, he's got almost 1 million followers. So, if you love personal finance with a little splash of comedy and a ton of knowledge, get on over there and give him a follow.
Yep.
So, yeah, thanks again, Josh, for coming on, man. We appreciate it, and let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Once again, thanks for listening to Brewbucks. My name's Jacob.
And I'm Alec.
Signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Brewbucks Podcast. Produced by your favorite financial coaching company, Left Coast Finance. If you're looking for help building a personal financial roadmap, or you just want to talk about great beer, and who doesn't, head over to leftcoastfinance.com.